roughly a third of Americans say they have trust in the media to report the facts fully, accurately, and fairly. That's according to a new YouGov survey. More say they trust in President Trump's administration's reporting. To assess why, we welcome Dr. Bobby Eberle, conservative political strategist and host of the 13-Minute News Hour, and A. Scott Bolden, former chair of the D.C. Democratic Party and former New York Assistant District Attorney. A. Scott Bolden, Bobby Eberle, great to have you both.
Thanks
for having us.
Now, a recent YouGov survey found that roughly 29% of Americans only trust the news media, and you have 44% that say they trust the Trump administration to state the facts fully and accurately. Scott, I'm going to start with you. How are you interpreting this current administration in this survey here as a former chair of the Washington, D.C. Democratic Party?
I fully appreciate it in that Donald Trump has a way of communicating. He's a great marketeer, and whether he gets his facts right or wrong, his supporters and followers follow him. And if he says it over and over and over again, historically, we know that they accept it, and they accept it as a truth, whether he flip-flops on the issue or not. Whether he says, the January 6th attack on the Capitol was peaceful and they were patriots, and he's a part, or any other issue, or Russia, was not the aggressor in the Ukraine war. His followers, coupled with Fox News, ingrains that and says it over and over again until it becomes their truth. And I'm not being critical either way. I'm saying that's just historically what has occurred. It's disappointing that the media is only at like 39%, because the media is a target of Donald Trump's often attacks over the last kind of 8 years or so. And so, Donald Trump's got the House, the Senate, he's got media behind him, and, his agenda is moving forward, and the Democrats really don't have a good response to it, but hopefully they'll come up with one. But right now, it's all coming up Trump's world. Bobby?
Yeah, well, on those percentages, you got to look at, why are these percentages so low? Why is the trust in the media? And I agree with Scott. I mean, President Trump has done a great job of, putting the media in a certain corner with certain descriptors, certain adjectives, fake news, and things like that. But you got to look beyond the rhetoric to the reality. And people believe it not just because Donald Trump says it, but because what we've lived through, especially the last 4 years with COVID and with leading into the election on Hunter Biden's laptop, and story after story where the average American citizen couldn't say something, couldn't print something, couldn't post something without it getting blocked, censored, banned, throttled. And so the trust in overall media has gone down, big tech included with social media. But the way stories are framed, the way stories are covered, the access that legacy media had to the White House, which is changing now, and to the detriment of other media outlets, has all painted a picture and made a narrative that the American people say, wait, this isn't fair. We need dissenting opinions. We need both sides covered. And I think that's why you see the percentages where they are.
Donald Trump's 4 criminal trials or indictments and what have you, and his narrative on those as being politically weaponized and politically driven. And so you have this constant beat, despite, him being convicted in New York. But his narrative really helps everything that Bobby said and what we're talking about right now. Again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm a Democrat, but I know really good communications and marketing when I see it.
Jeff Bezos, who would have thought, directing the Washington Post now to focus its opinion section on supporting personal liberties and free markets. Bobby, does this signal a shift in culture where sort of the more left-leaning liberal viewpoints are no longer the de facto to the mainstream media?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two things, Steve, actually. One is this cultural shift where they recognize, over time that the American people just have rejected this kind of Marxist, left-wing ideology, and you need more mainstream. So what is that when you talk about big tech or you talk about these legacy publications, that affects the bottom line. As what was it, Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods said, that Republicans buy shoes too. And so you don't want to alienate half of your market. And so I think it's wise business. I mean, this is why Apple has come around and Zuckerberg has come around. And it also reflects that cultural shift that, hey, we're not a media outlet in Russia or China or something. We don't advocate for Sharia law, for example, or, communist way of doing government. So we want opinions and everything, but we also have to remember that we're Americans, right? Regardless of whether you're a journalist, you're still an American and hopefully a patriot. So I think this is good, and it's a good business move.
Hey, Scott, I want to read a quote from Bezos' statement for you. He said, quote, "There was a time when a newspaper might have seen it as a service to bring the readers to the readers' doorsteps every morning, a broad-based opinion section that sought to cover all views. Today, the internet does that job." End quote. What is the role of an opinion section in this, I guess you would say, age of the internet?
I have twin daughters, 30 years old. I've got another daughter, 40 years old. If you ask them where they get their news from and what shapes their opinion, whether they're liberal or more conservative than their father, it's everything but those main news sources. It's not cable news. They're on TikTok. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram, and they're getting news. They're generating, business owners are generating business. And so there's just this overwhelming amount of content out there that you can get on your own and you choose to read. And we're not even talking about the undernet, if you will, or the black internet, if you will, as far as kind of the, under ops and stuff that people have access to. And so whether you're a conspiracy theorist, whether you're a bleeding heart liberal in the far left, right, you've got a source to go to.
Trump's White House is taking control of the press pool. It seems to be somewhat of an implosion of the White House Correspondents Association. How do you see this ultimately playing out?
Well, I hope they cut a deal. And I know Donald Trump likes people who are loyal to him, and he likes positive press, even though he has fake news and everything that doesn't agree with him is fake news. I hope they resolve it, because the press, democracy dies in darkness. I do believe that. And whether the AP will say it's the Gulf of America or Gulf of Mexico, me personally, I just don't, as a lawyer, I don't believe that's enough to block them from fair and impartial news coverage. And remember, the AP sends out stories to those companies or those news outlets that can't get there, including those in small rural communities, which is the base of Donald Trump's.
Bobby, Biden also did make his own changes at the White House press corps, the press pool, cutting off more than 440 reporters' credentials when he took office. What should the dynamic be between media and the presidency?
Well, I think it should be driven by fundamental fairness. And that is, as Scott said too, hearing from both sides, whether you're far left, far right, somewhere in the middle. And I think what's happened is, this White House press corps, this Correspondents Association has had this monopoly on who they send to these various meetings, like the smaller meetings inside the Oval Office, on Air Force One, these smaller events. And it's really, it's devolved into where they feel ownership in that, when it's a White House decision on who can have coverage. And so as the media are spinning it like this is just government oppression, what they're doing is trying to get fair and balanced. So when you have a press conference, that you get questions from all sides. There are tons of great media outlets out there that have been denied access to the White House. That's what's about to change in a major way. And you're about to see, when you watch future press conferences, a lot more questions from all over the spectrum. And I think that's good for America.
Hey, Scott Bolden, Bobby Eberle, great to have you both.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.